My name is Danika Cooley, thinkingkidspress.com, thinkingkidsblog.org. We're here to equip you to teach the Bible and Christian history to your kids. I'm going to talk about when your child doesn't want to do homeschool, because it is one of the most frequent reasons I see personally and also in homeschool groups for people not homeschooling anymore. And I think I have some stuff to say on it, so we're going to go through it. It'll be like having coffee. The plan is to cover just the philosophy of homeschooling super quick, proactive parenting to set you up for homeschool success, urgent care, like when you're having that homeschool emergency and your kids don't want to study, 5 questions to ask before making parenting decisions, and then troubleshooting your homeschool. I have 4 kids. 2 we raised from the ages of 8 and 10 out of a high-risk situation. My husband's kids, so we had some educational struggles there. And then 2 we've been homeschooling since 1st and 2nd grade. They were going to private Christian school, and we brought them home. So they are now a junior and senior, and our older 2 kids are adults. So I am going to try to speak some truths that may or may not resonate with you, but I hope that they're universal truths that you can apply to your homeschool. And as a Christian, I pray that they're biblical and will help you with that as well. So why we homeschool is really important. We don't homeschool to get through the math book in a year or to make our kids prodigies, although our personal philosophy is Christian classical, and I'm very structured, and I'm like beyond type A. That's just how God equipped me. And we incorporate a lot of Charlotte Mason-y type stuff. We love literature, love being out in nature, but that's not where we homeschool. And I would challenge you to think about this as well, to disciple our kids for the Lord, to teach them how to learn, and to raise functional, contributing, ethical adults. So whenever I'm having trouble in my homeschool, my kids are not cooperating because they are people, I want to go back to those priorities and reevaluate. And discipling our kids for Christ is a process. It involves so much talking. We are not looking to create products. We can't. I just want to be really clear about that. You cannot create a product out of your kid because you use the right method. So we are looking to reach their hearts, develop work ethic, diligence, and honor for God. So those are our priorities, and I think keeping those in mind really helps. Okay, so proactively. We're going to talk about proactive parenting to set your homeschool up for success. To stay healthy, and health is a big deal for me. We eat well, we exercise, we use vitamins. Those kind of things help us make it through things like having lung issues and your estate being on fire, right? Like, if I'm already doing the best I can to set myself up, I'm going to do better when these things happen. So with parenting intentionally, communication is so important. Our kids really do better when they know why they're doing what they're doing. They know what the goal is. They know we love them. And when we talk to them about the problems they're having. And on top of communication, structure and relationship in our homeschools is so important. So I used to manage a children's home for very low functioning teens. A lot of them had autism as one of their diagnoses. Structure was like huge. In fact, if they didn't have structure in their day, they didn't function well. And I think all of us are like that. It's just that with autism, it's so much easier to see. So we like to have routines and a rhythm to our day. And then relationship building. Your kids are going to obey you. They're going to listen to you. You're going to have a voice in their lives because of your relationship. So having fun, being affectionate with them, engaging with them. And sometimes as a homeschool mom, parent, that can be exhausting. And sometimes we need to check out. I had every day quiet time. My kids are high school now, the younger ones, so they have independent study and it's quiet and I need that. But we, after lunch every day, had a quiet hour where they had to read, or sometimes I would put on what's in the Bible or whatever it was, where I could just, gather myself. But I want to engage with them the rest of the time and be excited about what they're excited about. And that helps head off problems in your homeschool, actually. And then character training up front. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But it's easy to character train in the moment when your kid is lying to you. It's easy to want to tell them they need to be honest, but it's really helpful if you're reading books about characters and talking about how honesty affects their life. If you're finding that in the Bible, character training as you go is so important. Okay, so also in being proactive, before you encounter problems, relationship solves so many problems before they occur. Our kids, we want them to know that we love them, that we value their service and contribution, why education matters. And we want to look for the teachable moments in every day to teach those the character, respect, values that we want them to have. And then as Christians, to point them to the gospel and to Jesus, sharing the gospel every day with our kids. So just another point in being proactive, kids mirror what they see in their parents. So when we share respect, consideration, and love with our kids, that's most likely what we're going to get back from them on a regular basis. So just a couple more less theoretical, more practical tips on being proactive and setting up your homeschool so that you don't have moments of outright defiance, which you will, but this will help. Daily exercise. Our kids are like bundles of energy. They have got to get out and run around. We used to aim for an hour of activity at least a day. We have boys, and one of them runs 30 miles a week right now. And the other one, these are my two at home. He runs like 15 miles a week. He lifts weights every day. And they still, if they have not gotten enough movement for themselves, it affects them and it affects their attitudes. So when our kids were little, we lived right outside of Portland in a very large city next to Portland. And we would go to the Arboretum and go for walks. We'd go for walks outside. We would go to the mall and walk around. We would have dance parties in the kitchen, anything to get them moving. Knowing they're loved is a big deal. So they need to hear it in the way that they hear it. And I know that pop psychology is kind of iffy, but I really like the 5 love languages for children. It actually really helped me understand where my kids were coming from and be creative about showing love for them. Okay. So allow them some autonomy. Kids need choices. So it can be like what they want for lunch. It can be which book we're going to read first. But just giving them a choice in their day makes a huge difference. The structure and routine, we've talked about that. Routine is so important. It doesn't mean you have to study the same thing every day or at the same time. It just means, these are your general hours for school, and this is when you eat lunch, and you have a routine. It also helps with depression. So there's so many things that routine helps with. Respectful tone and words. I think that kids follow our example. So when we say please and thank you to our kids, they're going to mirror that again. Praising kids for good behavior and response time, edifying and encouraging them. Call out the strengths that you see in your kids, because those are the things that the Lord has given them to really fit them for service in His kingdom. Ephesians 2:10. Limit screen time. This is not a popular one, but I'm just going to bring it up. I have 4 kids, and too much screen time, it changes them. It like affects their neurology and makes them into different people I don't like quite as much. And it does the same thing for me. So in our home, we don't have video games. We don't watch television. We watch movies once in a while, and we'll watch educational stuff. But it's been something for us that has been great, and given our kids the space to develop who they are and who God has made them to be. And I know that is not possible in every home. I know lots of homes have a parent who's very committed to games or whatever. And I don't see anything wrong with using the internet as a tool. Obviously, I do. But limiting screen time helps their attitude. And then character training. Again, reading through the Bible and talking to them about it. You can use Bible Road Trip to help with that. And Christian biographies. Okay. So that is some proactive stuff that you can do to just set yourself up for homeschool success. And a lot of it has to do with you setting the tone in your house. Urgent care in the heat of the moment. Kids all have defiant moments. Every child is going to refuse to do their work, or not want to work, or complain, or cry. Homeschooling is work, and they are people just like we are. Sometimes I don't want to wash the dishes, and sometimes my kids don't want to do their math. So I think something that's important to remember is that strong-willed kids are designed by God to be leaders. That really helps me. I have a lot of strong-willed kids, and it helps me to remember that the Lord has equipped them to lead others, and strong-willed kids are the ones that, once they have good values established, they say no to the things that violate their values. So part of what we're doing when we're homeschooling is helping them develop those values. Okay, so another thing to remember is that arguing, what can sound a lot like arguing and often is our kids developing their neural connections, where they're taking all that information they learned as little people and they're connecting it, and then they're making arguments, and they're developing the logic part of their brain. And that usually happens around 7th to 9th grade. So it's important to remember that it is a developmental stage. Likewise, when they are young and they ask you why about everything, this is where the communication comes in. They may not know why they're doing something, and it really helps if they do. Okay, so with defiance, with like outright defiance. I'm not doing this. My best suggestion, and this is as having raised 4 kids and 2 from a tough situation, don't make their defiance about you. If your behavior is threatening or angry or sarcastic, their behavior then becomes a reaction to yours. So the best thing you can do is allow your kids to own their behavior and fix it. And I think this is another thing I see a lot in person and in homeschool groups, is it's easy to forget that we are the parents and we are in control. So you own or you rent, this is your house, it doesn't matter how you pay for it. You are the one who is supplying the clothing, the food, and you're picking the homeschool curriculum, even if your kids have a choice. So I don't want that to sound harsh, because I don't mean it that way. It's just important to remember you're the adult. And same thing when you're reacting. You're the adult. You're the one who's had 30, 40 years of controlling your emotions. So that's where you get to practice it, and God is going to sanctify you. So just like we don't just send our little people in to clean their bedrooms and expect them to do so, we go in at first, right? And we help them find a place for everything. We help them learn how to put things away. So then later they can take control of that themselves. So same thing with obedience in the homeschool. You are helping your kids learn how to obey. Okay, that was the hardest thing I had to say. And again, I don't mean it in a harsh way, but it's important to remember. So the last part, I think, of urgent care, like when your kids are just outright defiant, there are some tools you can use. It's important because we know that our emotions get involved, to tamp that down and take a break. So sometimes that means removing ourselves from the situation and just breaking, especially if we're going to sin against our kids. We do not want to do that. If our kids need a break, what I would do when my kids were outright defiant would be to take away their schoolwork and leave them at the table or wherever they were. I would not send them to some place they could mess around. I would just leave them there. And I would say, it's really clear that you're just not ready to do your math right now. And I think that I'm going to take it. I'm going to let you stay here in the middle of everything. And just think about the attitude that you have right now. Think about whether it's honoring to God, and pray and really work on that attitude. And when you're ready to talk, you let me know and we'll talk. And everybody else would be doing something fun or exciting. We'd go ahead and do crafts. I mean, we would do whatever. They would just sit there. And like I said, I have some strong little kids. They would sit there for a long time. But eventually, they would get to a point where they could talk about it. So that is a tool that you can use. Natural consequences are huge. So I'll just give you an example. If your child does something like my child did, my child read half of his assigned books for 6 months. I was really sick that year. I had pneumonia, and I did not quiz him on the books because I trusted him, and he was young, and he read half of the assigned books. And when we figured it out, he said he read some, and he said he didn't read some, and he'd like read every other chapter type of thing. So what we did for natural consequence was he had to read all the books over again. And the way we handled that was to say, you know, buddy, we're really sorry that you chose to do this. Like this, let them own their behavior. This is something that you did and it's a bummer because it has a consequence. Here's the consequence. You are going to reread every book all the way through, and every book will be quizzed. And that year, and we read a lot of books, so that year it took him through the whole summer to catch up, finish the rest of the year's reading for history and literature, and then catch up. And you would think that that would be something he wouldn't do again, but he did, because again, this is a process. We're training up our kids and discipling them. So we let him own his behavior again with natural consequences. And so 2 years later, he had to reread all of his books all the way through, all over again. And now he's going to be in college next year. He's an excellent student. He has integrity. He's honest. And he got to own the consequences, and I didn't have to get mad. And of course I was, felt betrayed and was hurt, but I didn't need to give him those emotions. I just dealt with them in private. And then, we helped him understand the consequences of his behavior. Okay, another tool, if your kids are outright defiant, sometimes you are asking too much of them. Sometimes we want to go from step 1 to step 10, on a stair step, and our kids need step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if your kids are outright defiant, sometimes it makes sense to try dialing back your schedule, dial back your work, and you don't even really need to announce you're doing this. Just dial it back and see if it helps. And if it does, then put yourself at a new stair step and help them come along developmentally, because as a homeschool teacher, you are helping them develop. Let's go to 5 questions to ask before making parenting decisions. This is a little more theoretical, less practical, but I think it's important. So the first question I always ask when making decisions is, what is biblical in this situation? So God's word is full of practical advice, and we can apply that wisely to the situations we're in. So I know if my kids are refusing to do their homework, and I've already made sure that I'm not asking too much, and I'm making sure that I'm being proactive with relationship and exercise and, the things they need, then I can determine that I might be seeing some signs of laziness, disobedience, and foolishness for the future. And with foolishness, I again need to communicate to them why we are doing this. So those are not going to serve my children well. And if you remember, our stated goals for homeschooling are to teach our kids, to disciple them for Christ, to teach them how to learn, and then to raise functional adults. So I want to make sure that what I'm doing is biblical and that it's achieving those goals. Another question to ask yourself in parenting is, what in this situation is going to glorify God? So with my kids, I know that encouraging disobedience or slothfulness in them, or allowing that, is not good stewardship. It will not help them become functioning, godly adults. I can't win their hearts for Christ and share the gospel, and I want to every day, but I can steward them well. I also know that my own behavior, if I'm angry, threatening, silent, I have a poor attitude, that those things don't glorify God either. So what does glorify God is working to reach my child's heart, setting really clear expectations so that they know what's expected and what we're going to do, enforcing boundaries and communicating to them grace, mercy, forgiveness, and again, sharing the gospel with them every day. And actually, defiance and homework is a great way to do that. I say homework, and we joke about it being homework, but in our homeschool. So, okay. The question number 3 for parenting is, what will help my child become an accountable adult? Because again, we're raising adults, preparing them for life. If I give them too heavy of a burden, I am going to exasperate them. Scripture tells fathers not to exasperate their children. And as a partner with my husband in raising these kids and stewarding them for Jesus, I do not want to exasperate them. What will help them become an accountable adult? If there's a lot of resistance, it's important to see if there's a developmental issue too. That's not usually my first thought. I know a lot of people jump there, but we want to make sure that our kids aren't struggling with that. Have I increased the workload slowly so that they are again walking stair steps in their development? So as adults, I want my kids to respect authority, to be diligent, and to comply with set expectations that they've agreed to, in a work situation or at home. Okay, so number 4, questions to ask when you're parenting is, what works for our family? Every family is different, and I know some of us homeschoolers are single parents, some are in a situation where someone's disabled, you have a kid that has learning disabilities, you might have some unusual situations in the way that you live, so you have to determine what your values and goals and lifestyle, and I don't mean outside of biblical values, but what those are, what's going to benefit everybody in your family, and then go forward with that. One of the benefits of homeschooling is that you can do what works best for your kids. But I'd say that for every family, for you as the homeschool mom to be loving, kind, and gentle, and whatever you're doing with your kids, take breaks, meals, and snacks. Our goal, I'm going to tell you a story. Our goal as parents is to help bend our kids' wills into submission to the Lord, not to break them. And I think in past generations, maybe breaking the will was the way to go. And maybe we've pendulumed to not bending the will at all. But our goal is to help our kids become functioning adults by bending their will. So one of my kids that we homeschool now, we brought him home from private school in 1st and 2nd grade, and it's the best decision we ever made. It's been wonderful, but he wouldn't work. And in Christian school, he is a smart kid, and his job was to help other kids do their math. Well, when he got home, he would not do his math. And we had the whole 3 months of summer to de-school. So it wasn't that. It was just he wasn't going to do it. And he was serious. And he was 7. And, so my husband and I talked about it. And I'm at home a lot, so this worked for us. I sat him at the table with one sheet of math the program we were using then. And I would say, hey, today we're gonna do this sheet of math. And when you finish, we will go to the Arboretum. Unless it's 3 o'clock. And then I have to make dinner. I have to do chores, and we won't go to the Arboretum anymore, but I will take your sheet of math and I will put it away. And if you haven't done it, tomorrow I will pull it out and I'm going to put it in front of you again and we'll do it again. And I just want to tell you, I am, like I've mentioned, I'm super, super type A. I had a really hard time with this. Like, I prayed for myself a lot because I wanted to let him own his behavior and smile and just make it clear that it's so sad every day for 5 months. We don't get to go to the Arboretum. 5 months. It's just 5 months. And finally I got up one morning and I was like, I am going to take my child bike riding, not to the Arboretum because I'm not going to break what I said, but we're going to go for a bike ride for the first time and we're going to go get ice cream before lunch. Like, that's what we're doing. And I don't know why, but it made sense. So we went for a bike ride. And then we went to get ice cream. And so my little guy is like running off playing in the mall, and we're sitting on a bench, and I look at my other little guy and I go, so how's homeschooling going? And I just dreaded hearing what he had to say. I did not want to hear it. So he looks at me and he says, and I was astonished that he was so clear. He said, you're really stubborn. And he goes, you're more stubborn than I am. This is after 5 months of sitting at the table every day with one sheet of paper and refusing to do it. And he said, I'm going to do my math tomorrow. And he did. And he did everything else that we wanted. And he's complained a lot. But as he's gotten older, that stopped too, because he loves Jesus and the Lord is sanctifying him. And he's a delight. But man, I thought that 5 months was going to break me. But it was outright defiance. It was not too much for him. He had been tutoring all the other kids in math. He just wasn't going to do it. And so, we just focused on letting him own his behavior. A natural consequence is that you just don't get to do anything during school hours unless you do this math. And it bent his will without breaking him. And I did not sin against him, which is something I'm really proud of. So, and that took a lot of prayer. Anyway, that's, so do what works for your family. Again, if we had a situation where we had medical issues with a child, I wouldn't have been able to do that. But because we were at home, we could. Okay, so 5th question. What will help this child go in the direction he should go? So I think when we are parenting our kids and homeschooling them, one of the great things is we get to tutor them individually. It is important to remember that our kids are designed by God for a specific purpose, and He has a plan for them. So we want to teach to their strengths. And we also want them to be as functional as they can in other areas. But we find the things that they're good at and we call it out in them. And we help them to determine a path as they go forward for their lives. Okay, so troubleshooting. This is the last section. I'll be done in a minute here, and you can ask questions if you have any. So if your child appears to be defiant, is refusing to do work, the first thing to ask, is this rebellion or frustration? Like, is this too hard for them, or are they just not going to do it? Another thing to ask yourself when you're troubleshooting is, where is my heart at? Why do I care about this? Is this in our stated values and priorities for our homeschool? How important is this? And how am I dealing with it? Am I dealing with it in a loving and kind way and letting them own their behavior and consequences? Or am I making it about me and my reaction? What is happening in my child's world is another troubleshooting question. But that's helpful when you're troubleshooting, to remember that our kids are little people with real things happening in their world. Okay, the last troubleshooting question is, what is a way that I can modify my curriculum to fit my family? This is a big deal. Like, we do so much research to find the right curriculum. And I don't think that most of the time there's a perfect curriculum for us, because we're all different. And we all have different things going on. But what I found is that I can modify curriculum to fit my family better. For instance, I tend to substitute in Christian history books when there's a biography. If there's a biography that teaches the period that is on a Christian figure, I will substitute it in, because I know that it's going to take care of one of my goals, which is not only to teach Christian history, but to teach character and values to my kids. So I modify that way. I add books, I subtract books. I don't like referring people to my history curriculum, because it never looks like what it looked like at the beginning. So, and then like with Bible Road Trip, it's a buffet. We put everything in there. It's got crafts and videos and researching the Bible, which I think is important, and prayer for the nations. And it might be too much for your family at this point. So reading the Bible and the discussion is the most important part, and researching what the book of the Bible you're reading is about is a big deal. So those are the 3 sections that I would consider non-negotiable, and then everything else is just an extra way to learn what you're learning. So, and if you want to use prayer for the nations for geography, it's a sneaky, fun way to do that. But you are in control of, you're in control of your household, you're in control of your curriculum, you're in control. And I think there's a lot of freedom in knowing that. And you can experiment a little. You have a lot of years with your kids, and anything you do is going to be something that is intentional, and that if you're doing it intentionally to the glory of God, He's going to bless it. So it's okay to experiment a little bit with your homeschool, and it's okay to troubleshoot. Nothing is set in stone. You know your children, and you know their hearts, and what we're trying to do is reach their hearts, and you can do that. It's not going to happen overnight. This is a process, and it takes a long time, and sometimes we don't see the progress right away. It doesn't mean it's not happening. God is going to sanctify your kids if they're saved, and we get to be an instrument to point them to Him and to let them know they're loved. And I can't think of anything more valuable than that. So I'm going to pray, and then we're going to be done. Heavenly Father, I just thank you. Thank you that you gave me the air to get through this. And I thank you so much for these precious parents who love their kids and want the best for them. And I thank you just for the opportunity to share what I've learned. And I pray that they would find some nugget of truth in here that they could use. I pray that you would equip each of these parents to point their kids to you and to love them and to build relationship, and that you would give them insight into where their kids are coming from and what they need right now. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, thanks for coming, and I love you guys. I pray for you all the time. Okay.